It's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction. The talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org, for more info, or you can email me at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. On the line with us today, we have Rachel G. Carrington. We'll be talking about her book, The Early Years, available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Rachel was brought to People of Distinction today by Author Reputation Press. You know, some of the best movers in the business. If you have a book that you'd like moved, move it through Author Reputation Press. You can find them at authorreputationpress.com. You know, guys, I'm so excited to have Rachel here on the line with us today. I mean, the book, The Early Years, it's such a feel-good story. I mean, there's gonna be, of course, as is with anybody's journey, there's gonna be hills and valleys that we experience on this ride with her. But I mean, really, at the end of the day, what is more human than that, right? I mean, we all have faced a lot of trial and tribulations in our own lives. And of course, the situation that we're all going through right now as a human family, I mean, we're all kind of on this roller coaster together. And you know, what I find beautiful about The Early Years and beautiful about this narrative that Rachel has brought to our table and has created for us, it really is, it's such a powerful message, because at the end of the day, the underlying theme that is discussed and presented to all readers that encounter this book is the emphasis on hard work, and how through hard work you'll be able to persevere against any odds. And you know, not just the hard work, of course, it's hard work in conjunction with following in faith. And you know, what I love about that message is, regardless of whether or not you're religious or spiritual, having someone there by your side that's going to help push you along and create the pathway through those obstacles is something that I think we all need, and something that we can all relate to. So without further ado, we have Rachel on the line, and I'm just so excited to discuss and learn more about this amazing book. So first and foremost, Rachel, thank you very much for being a guest with us on People of Distinction. How are you today?
I'm fine, and thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Absolutely. Rachel, let's jump right in. I mean, please tell our listening audience here at People of Distinction a little bit about The Early Years.
Well, my book, it's a memoir, of course, and it starts the story of the life of myself when I was very young in the 1930s and 40s. My first book, and this is book one of Matters of the Heart, which there will be a second sequel coming out, hopefully before the end of this year. But the first book ends in the early 1950s, so I've got more story to tell, a story I have to get out, and it will be coming. But this book tells of my teenage years. It goes into my earlier time on this earth, but my main desire in my whole school life was to get finished with school, go into college to become a teacher. And that was what I was driven to do. I just felt that's what I had to do. But then something happened. I came upon a crossroads in my life, and decisions had to be made. And that changed everything. It had an impact on my life forever. Mm-hmm. I met a young veteran returning from World War II, and my thoughts ran in a different direction. But I won't tell too much about that, because, well, I'll tell you this. When I finished my book and reread it to be sure I had it like I wanted, I realized it was a love story. But my life was a love story. But we had a lot of problems as far as money. We lived in a poverty-stricken area, made more so by the Great Depression, which had just passed. And we had, our story is a story of struggles and hardships, yet it's a life full of love and joy and faith. God led us through this. But this is one there was many ups and downs, many things that happened to myself, my husband, my parents, my later in life as our family started. That makes for an interesting reading.
Absolutely.
And it leaves the impression with people that if you want anything badly enough, and you're willing to work hard and trust in God to lead you, that you can just about have whatever you set out for if all those things are in line.
There it is. Such a powerful message. And, Rachel, what I love about what you just said regarding the early years is what's beautiful is it's a true narrative, right? I mean, you're not shying away from the adversity that you all encountered, on your life's journey that way. And I think so often when we read narratives similar to this, people, rightfully so or understandably so, tend to try to, run over their entire lives or run over the narrative with, broad strokes and not want to focus so much or shy away from the negativity that they faced and focus just on the positive aspects. And what I find beautiful is the fact that, again, you are very upfront about discussing and letting our audience, our listening audience, know that, hey, I talk about some not so great times, and that in itself is so relatable from a human standpoint, because again, we all know life isn't perfect, and as much as we would love for that to be the case, unfortunately it isn't. And having that relatability that way, knowing that I'm not the only person that is facing adversity, I'm not the only person that has come across hard times or have had to deal with difficult situations, I think is really where that true inspiration lives and breathes. So thank you so much for having the courage to completely be transparent in that way with our readers.
It was easy. When you're telling about your life, it's easy. It's kind of hard sometimes to admit to things that happened, but
Absolutely.
the things that it's incidents that you need to include. And what was hard, I kept journals, starting with my diary in high school. I kept journals all my life. And I thought, my husband encouraged me over and over to write a book. He said, you should write a book. He'd watch Oprah Winfrey in her on her show and see people coming who were authors presenting their books. And he'd say, you could do that, and you should, because we had a good life. It's something you need to tell people about. I never thought I could do it. But his encouragement and encouragement of others, especially my sisters. I'm the oldest of 11 in a family. I had 8 sisters and 2 brothers. And my 8 sisters encouraged me to write this because many of them were born after I left home, and they didn't know anything about my life. They wanted to hear about my life.
Right.
And and they wanted me to tape it. But after talking 2 evenings for about 3 hours in a row, I realized I'm not finished and I can't talk anymore. So they're urging for me to write a book.
Beautiful.
Actually got me started. And I had a good friend who encouraged me along the way, who had written a lot herself, never had anything published, never tried, but she could have. And she encouraged me to do just that. So there
Absolutely.
it is.
The next question that I have, and you already started going into it. I was going to ask about the inspiration, behind creating the narrative, but first and foremost, your parents. Whoa, my goodness, 11 kids. Well, that is, I'm sure, quite the feat there to raise all of them. So, praise them for taking on such a challenge. I'm sure there was never a dull moment. I know you said you're the oldest, so by the time you had left, a lot of your siblings were, kind of much younger in coming into the situation that way. But
True.
were there any other sources of inspiration aside from, the family and friends that you have already hinted towards, and of course your husband kind of pushing that narrative along?
My husband, I guess, was a main factor in it, but I probably would never have written the book had it not been for his death. I started thinking about it then, and I thought, if I'm going to do what he wanted me to do, I need to start now. And he died in 2009, and I started my book. But like I said about the journals, a major flood destroyed those journals in 1989, so I had nothing in writing. I had to do it from memory, and it was amazing how when I sat down at my typewriter, not at my computer actually, things would pop into my mind. When I'd write one memory, something else would pop in, and they popped in so quick, so fast. I ended up with 2 screens on my computer going at the same time, putting notes in the one on the right-hand side while I wrote my book on the other one. But your memory is a great thing. I mean, one memory will trigger another, and
absolutely,
I got through it.
What's fascinating about what you just said, Rachel, and guys, again, we're on the line with Rachel G. Carrington, talking about the early years, available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And, what's fascinating about what you said was, I come from a creative background. I'm an actor and a filmmaker here based out in Los Angeles. And I love, whenever I'm talking really to anybody, but specifically when I'm talking to my authors, I always love to figure out what was that creative spark that really kind of set them on this journey. And of course, yours is not a fictional narrative, okay? This is a memoir, okay? So you're talking about your life and your different things that you've encountered along that journey. And we've already discussed the inspiration and what helped create that narrative. What's beautiful is, again, how you're talking about, unfortunately, how you lost a lot of the diaries, which were going to be the basis for this narrative, or making it a little bit easier, of course, to formulate the words. But once you started to type, right? Once you sat down in front of that computer screen and you started to put the words to the page that way, it all just, it started to flow through you. And I find that fascinating, that initial snowflake that eventually kind of continues to build into a huge snowball through the memories and the creative process. And really, my next question for you, Rachel, is why did you feel that this was a narrative that needed to be told?
I wanted my family to know about our life. They were always asking questions, and my youngest daughter used to say to me, "Tell me about the olden times, Mommy." That was the olden times to her. Now, she appeared with me on an interview here in Ocala, and after they had read, the 2 people that interviewed had read my book from cover to cover. They knew what my book was about, and they asked specific questions. And they finally said to her, "What did you think about it?" And she answered, "Well, I always thought my mother was perfect, but after I found out she wasn't, and I realized I don't have to be perfect either." That was her comment. And I revealed lots of things. I told it like it was.
And
I think my family appreciates that.
Yeah, and that's refreshing. That's refreshing, right? Again, that you don't shy away from that aspect. Listen, guys, we're not nobody's perfect, right? Human beings are flawed by nature, and what's wonderful, again, is the fact that you do not shy away from that, Rachel. You come right out and you don't try to put up any facade there. And again, it is absolutely refreshing to see that transparency. So we truly appreciate it. Next question that I have for you, Rachel, is as we're going into the final minutes now of this interview, I mean, this book has so many layers, of course, that we've already discussed, and so many different powerful messages that we can pull from it. But since we have the author here on the line with us, who better to ask and get this information from? If there's one thing that you really want our listening audience here at People of Distinction to be able to pull from this interview, one message that you feel they have to know about this interview and about this book, what would that message be?
If you want something from life, and you know that God's with you in what you're wanting, and you are not afraid of hard work, just aim toward it. Aim toward it and keep doing what you need to do to get where you're going. And remember, God's watching you. Make sure that you're doing His will when you do it. Now, God can be the thread that holds the whole thing together.
Wonderful.
And there you are.
There it is. Well, wonderfully put. I mean, simple, direct to the point. And again, as we started off with this interview, we've come full circle, and we're ending with it as well. I mean, the message is so powerful, guys. Just getting down, rolling up your sleeves, getting down to the nitty gritty, and putting forth the hard work that you need to persevere against any obstacle. Such a beautiful message, and again, something that we can all relate to. But guys, that's not all. I mean, as Rachel pointed out at the beginning of this interview, she is working on a sequel to The Early Years. It's not completed just yet. It's still in creation, but expect that coming out very soon. Also in the process right now, based with our good friends there at Author Reputation Press. She's also in the process of constructing her personal website as well. So big things in the lineup for this next year for Rachel. And again, we've just spent this last time talking about The Early Years, available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. I mean, listen, it's such a feel-good story, right? And again, a journey that we can all relate to, because at the end of the day, nobody's perfect. At the end of the day, we've all encountered our own obstacles that way. So if you want to spend some time and get on this journey with Rachel and, kind of compare and contrast and understand that you are not the only person going through trial and tribulations that way, and you have other people that you can hear and share stories with, you have to go ahead and pick up The Early Years on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Once again, that's Rachel G. Carrington, The Early Years on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Rachel, thank you so much for being a guest with us on People of Distinction. We truly appreciated it.
Well, thank you, Benji. You have been wonderful.